Okay, everyone. So, welcome back to our podcast. How's everyone doing?
Welcome back. I'm really excited for the topics we've chosen for the next couple of episodes because they're about food.
Woot woot, food.
Yes.
And this is going to be like our last recording before Christmas.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So people don't know that because Sophia works and we have limited time where we're both free together, we do pre-record a lot of the episodes. So
Not a lot of the episodes, all of the episodes.
all of them, we pre-record them. So
Yeah. So, we're just recording this now just before Christmas because unfortunately I work in essential service, so I work during Christmas. But we're going to be talking about food, which is everyone's favorite topic.
yeah, so this episode specifically, we're going to talk about food culture and how that's really important in Korean culture.
It is. I feel like Koreans in general, there's a saying, you know, how people eat to live and live to eat. But I think
Yeah,
Korean people live to eat.
for sure. I would die. I would literally be so happy if I could fly to Korea right now and eat some food because I'm missing so much food.
Yeah, Korean food is quite nostalgic for us, and we always want to eat Korean food all the time.
Yeah, so the only time I get to eat like a variety of Korean food is usually when I go home during summer break in between, years of university. But because of COVID and limited flying and you're not allowed, not non-essential flying, so I haven't been able to go back and eat like the food that I really want to eat, which I can't make by myself.
Yeah, that's true. And also because Korean food, even though we've grown up eating it, doesn't necessarily mean we know how to make it. So, and we don't know how to make it good, which is completely different.
Yeah, and sometimes if you don't live in Korea, some of the ingredients aren't available.
That's true.
So
That's true. It
you
tastes
can't
different.
always try to imitate it. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk about the importance of rice. First of all, rice is important in any Asian culture, but in my eyes, Korean culture especially puts quite a heavy, how to say,
Emphasis.
yes, I just had a brain fart. Emphasis on rice.
But yeah, I think the one time I realized rice was so important. Yes, like you cook it at home and you eat it and whatever. But the amount of different types of rice you can get.
That's true. Korea has so much different types of rice that we eat.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they sell them either like separately or pre-mixed in like a bag.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. One of my favorite ways to eat rice is when you go to like a Korean restaurant and you get the rice in the hot stone bowl, like where you would get bibimbap,
yeah.
but you don't have like any of the toppings. So it's just rice that you eat with whatever you ordered.
Mm-hmm.
But when you let that hot stone kind of crisp and kind of caramelize the rice that's touching the stone itself,
Yeah.
like Korean people use that to pour water into it to kind of make it like what you would call like a porridge, but more not as thick.
Yeah, so when you get those kind of stone pot rices, they give you a separate bowl to scoop out all the rice first, and then whatever's remainder that's stuck on the stone bowl, they'll give you hot water to pour over and then close the lid. So while you're eating the rice with all the side dishes, that kind of steeps it, and by the time you're done, you eat and drink that as dessert.
Yeah, so Korean people tend to have lots of rice for dessert. Like if you go to like a Korean barbecue and you're done eating everything, you don't say, "Oh, like can we get ice cream for dessert or whatever?" That doesn't exist on the menu. But what you can get is you can order how many servings of rice that you want, and they'll fry the rice with the grease from the meat on the grill, and then lay it out all flat so it like crisps up, and then they'll like roll it in little like roly pieces, and that's your dessert. Your dessert is fried rice.
I think that's such a Korean culture though, because you don't really see other cultures doing that. Korean
It's so
people like
good.
eating rice for like an entree, main, or dessert. When people go
Yeah.
to like eat bread, even though they'll be eating like sandwiches or stuff like that, that's not considered a meal. That's considered like a snack before like the main.
Yeah.
And Korean people will go to have a big meal at a restaurant with rice and everything. And then afterwards, they'll go to a cafe and then they'll have like bread, cake, things like that for dessert. And then they'll sit there for hours talking and then they'll get hungry again, so they'll go eat again.
Yeah, that's the thing. So a lot of big Korean restaurants on the menu itself, they don't have desserts. So you have to actually go out of your way to a different place to get desserts. So if you wanted to get like cakes, you would have to go to a separate like bakery. Or if you want to like shaved ice, you would have to go to a store that sold that because they usually don't sell it in the main restaurant itself.
Yeah, because in Korea, they think of a meal as complete as I guess when you actually finish eating it, rather than if you had coffee and dessert, things like that. So there's really a different emphasis on completing a meal, I would say.
Yeah, like the meal should be able to be started and the meal should be able to end in the same location that you're eating.
Yeah, but then I feel like it's good because Korean people, even though you go to a house, they live by themselves or they live in a with a big family, you'll have rice no matter where you are. And there's different types
Mm-hmm.
of rice. So there's like the rice that's quite convenient. In Korea, even the pre-packaged rice, it's not cheap rice in Korea. They're actually quite expensive.
They're expensive, but they're so
Yeah,
good.
and they're really good. If you put them in the microwave for like 2.5, 3 minutes, it comes out as completely fresh rice. Not like it's not like we have no offense, but it's not like we're eating like Americanized microwave rice. I don't want to say a particular brand, but
It's just because Korean rice specifically, like when Korean people eat rice, it's sticky rice. So a lot of American or Western microwavable rice is not sticky. It's more like basmati rice that don't clump together.
kind of when you blow on
So
it, it kind of floats.
yeah, so I didn't know that when I first went to the States and I bought like microwavable rice and I microwaved it and it was literally just flakes of rice that wouldn't clump together.
Yeah,
But that's because the grain of rice is also completely different. But the Korean microwavable ones are the sticky type of white rice.
that's true. Asian rice tends to have a bit more starch to them, which is why
Yeah.
it's really important to wash the rice. Not just to take all of the starch out, but you need to wash it at least 2 or 3 times to make sure there are any impurities or anything that just leaves it. But
Yeah.
I've had this conversation with someone and they were talking about how rice tastes so good when they cook it in the microwave, and then I had to stop talking because I didn't want to offend anyone.
But there's also that video somewhere where this
Oh,
lady
the
was cooking fried
BCC.
rice.
Yeah.
She cooked rice to make fried rice and she rinsed the cooked rice under water. And I'm like,
That's a
you
problem.
just
But another problem is that when she made the rice, she put way more water than the rice, and then she strained the rice in a colander, and then she rinsed it.
that was traumatizing.
When I saw that, I was like, "Oh my goodness!" But apparently, that some parts of Asia do cook their rice like that.
I think someone duetted themselves with that video and they said they didn't do it like that.
But I think some parts of Asia, like that particular person who filmed that, doesn't make the rice like that. She was following a recipe. But I've heard that some people, like some parts of Asia, do cook their rice like that. But it was still very scary.
Well, it is.
Yes.
But so what I really like about Korean like the rice, like there's the microwavable rice obviously, but they're also really good at selling frozen fried rice.
Oh, yes.
So usually like when you have those bags of like sauteed stir-fried vegetables they can get at the grocery store,
Yeah.
and then when you try to saute them, they get soggy because the way that they're frozen,
Yeah.
it just like leaks out water. But if you get the Korean like frozen fried rice and you actually fry it, it doesn't get water, like it doesn't get soggy. Like it's a
And you
miracle.
don't even need oil to fry those fried rice,
Yeah.
and it still comes out really like glistening.
Yeah, it comes out like the rice pieces don't clump together. They're not mushy. It's like it's so amazing. Like I don't know how they phrase it, but I would like to
I
learn.
know, me too. Like even like pre-packaged frozen stuff is really good in Korea. Like the quality is pretty good.
It is like I don't know, like the quality of like frozen and kind of like refrigerated products are also really good.
That's true, that's true. But then while we're on the topic of rice and meals, we should also talk about how in Korea, when you're asking how someone's doing or saying that we should hang out sometime, that all revolves around meals as well.
Yeah, every like greeting and every kind of conversation starts off with like food related questions. So if you see someone you haven't seen in a really long time, usually you'll say like, hi, I haven't seen you. How have you been doing? But in Korea, the thing you would say was, oh, have you eaten yet?
Yeah, which is like
Like as a direct
yeah, and
translation.
also the first thing your parents would say when you pick up the phone is, "Did you eat something yet? Did you have breakfast yet? Lunch yet? Dinner yet? Something like that." And then
Yeah.
when you meet a friend for after a long time, you'd be like, instead of getting like, "Oh, let's go grab a coffee sometime," you always say, "Oh, let's grab a meal sometime."
Yeah, like you always, I feel like a lot of just conversational culture is through
It
meals.
revolves
And I feel
around
like that's
meals.
it revolves around meals, but also I feel like in Korea we have a big culture when you order food that you share it with everyone that's on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So I know in Western cultures you order your dish for yourself and you eat it, because you ordered it.
Yeah.
But in Korea you usually order for the table and then you share it with everyone that's at the table.
There's in always like Korean dramas or skits or kind of funny programs when a like person brings out a food, like a waiter from the restaurant, they'll ask like who wants this food, and then everyone will say, "Can you put it in the middle? Can you put it in the middle?" Like that. So it just
Yeah,
shows
cuz
that how everything is kind of sharing style rather than to each their own.
yeah, so the food culture, especially in Korea, is based around sharing. So you do tend to order for the table and not individually, and I think that's how a lot of connections and friendships are made too.
Like Korean barbecue places, if you realize, or like Korean just places in general, unless you're ordering like a la carte menus by yourself, barbecue and things like that, you can't order one portion. You have to order minimum two portions per table.
Yeah, like yeah. So a lot of Korean culture is based on sharing.
Yeah, so
Was you can see that in Korean barbecue. Like you pay like usually you go to like all you can eat Korean barbecues and you pay per person.
yeah.
But when you order the food, you still consider everyone else at the table. Like you don't order it for yourself,
Mhm.
and then they'll bring each of you like one serving. Like you order it for the table.
Yeah, that's true. So it's always known fact that you have to share. And also Korean parents are also so they put such a heavily emphasize on sharing too when you're young. They'll say like, especially when you're siblings, they'll be like, oh, you'll have to share this with your sister or share this with your younger brother, something like that. Like sharing is always something that's within the culture, especially with food. If parents give you a snack, they'll always be like, share with your brother, share with your sister, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. We had to grow up. Well, up to when I was born, it was just me and Sophia, like as kids, like in the whole family.
Hmm.
So we did have to share like quite a bit, and obviously down the line when we got cousins as well, we just all had to share.
Yeah, but our family in general, not all families like this, but our family in particular, they like to gather quite often. So
Yeah,
from a young age, we were told like we had to share like quite frequently.
yeah, that's true.
So that became kind of like our given. So even when I go out right now to eat with my husband, it's never usually like you order this, I order that. It's always like what do we want to eat both, and then
Yeah,
we'll get the two that we want to eat and we'll share. We've never put like one plate in front of each other and not shared food.
yeah. Like, my friend and I were going to have a Christmas potluck. This is okay because I live alone and my friends live alone, so people who live alone where I am, you're allowed to have a gathering for Christmas. So don't come at me. Um, but we're all Asian and we're all different like countries. Like we're from different countries, but we all agree on having a potluck because I just feel like being able to share food just it just makes your friendship so much better and so much stronger. Like
Mm-hmm.
you get to share an experience, which is so much better than just having your own food and just talking to each other.
Mm-hmm. That's really true because we put such a important emphasis on food. I really feel the importance of food as well. Like if I want to invite someone over, I
Yeah.
can't just, get something delivered to share or something. I feel like I really have to cook for that person, to cook something that's nice, that I really want to give that person to be able to taste. We can't just be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, let's just order food and just hang out." It's like, "No, no, no, you come over, I'll make food," you know?
Yeah, I think I have that tendency as well. So when my friend goes home for, Christmas break or goes home for a long weekend and she comes back, she usually doesn't have groceries in her fridge because, if you're going away for a period of time, you don't want food staying in there to rot. So she'll usually, finish her fridge before she leaves. And you know that feeling of when you come back home from a trip, you're already tired. You have to unpack and you have to eat obviously, but there's nothing in your fridge. Like it's kind of annoying. You have to go out and get groceries that day or starve and get it the next day. But if I do know my friend is having that kind of schedule, I'll make food that I would normally eat, but I'll pack it in like a Tupperware and I'll like give it to her the day she comes back. So at least she doesn't have to worry about having a meal when she comes home when she's all tired. And I think that's how Korean people also express their feelings. They like give food, they'll drop by and be like, "Oh, I just made this, so I can like just drop it by and give it to you or whatever." But I think also giving made food is also a way that people show appreciation in Korean culture.
Yeah, like in Korea, when you have a baby born or when you've just moved to a new place, not many people do it anymore, but the culture was that you would get like little cute rice cakes and you would hand them out to the
Yes.
neighborhood saying it's like a celebratory thing.
It's like saying like, "Oh, we moved in, but we just wanted to say hi to our neighbors," and they do that by bringing like those rice cakes.
Yeah, and if you
Someone did bring it to mom's apartment when I was there,
yeah,
and it
like
was
they
very
still
yummy.
they still do that, and I just feel like in Korea certain occasions have certain food that people associate it with. So the rice cake is normally like
Yeah.
when you have like babies, when you like getting married and you move to a new place, they kind of associate those things with each other, I feel.
Yeah, like how in Korea too, when you celebrate the New Year, you eat rice cake soup, which is very thinly sliced rice cakes
Right
in
cake.
like a broth, rice
Right
cakes,
cake.
but thinly sliced rice cakes in like a broth, and that's how you kind of spend New Year's. So
There's a saying in
it is
Korea when
different.
you have that particular soup, you gain a year older, which is why when you're young, they try to eat as much bowls as they can because they want to get older faster. But when you're old, you tend not to eat it because you don't want to get older.
Yeah, that's the thing. So even if I'm not in Korea and I spend New Year's like on my own, I'll actually make it
I make it for New Year's
at
too.
home.
I'll still make it for New
Yeah,
Year's.
like it's nostalgic because we've had it every year when we lived with mom.
Yeah.
But since we're not with her anymore, I feel like it's still like a tradition, still a piece of our culture that I do want to keep on doing in
Mm-hmm.
my life,
Yeah.
even though I'm not back home. So all the ingredients now you can get like commonly available. So I do make it on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and I will make it this year, this new
Yeah,
year.
I'll probably make it too. I feel like that's just something that we've done every year. And I think it's
Hmm.
something, not really a tradition, but more of a cultural importance to us that we continue to do it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's just how we kind of associate our culture is through food.
Yeah, and since we are in like a Western culture, it's gonna be in our hands and our we have to take it into our own hands to just preserve the culture because we don't have someone that's enforcing it as
Yeah.
well. Because when we used to live with mom, she would cook for us and she would make food, so it's kind of we have it exposed to us every day. But since we're on our own now, it's in our hands to kind of implement it into our lifestyle. And I just feel like I'm glad that we feel the importance to keep that in.
Yeah, and for us, since we're living abroad, the easiest way for us to really connect to our culture and how our family celebrates holidays is through food. Even though we can't make it exactly as though it was when it was in Korea, but we can kind of mimic it in a way that it kind of brings nostalgia to us.
Yeah, so during the quarantine, I actually have had a lot of time, like, everyone else has. And I've actually been making a lot more Korean food and dishes that I wasn't able to make before because of the time restraints.
Which is good, I feel. I feel like even though this COVID, it's really putting everyone at strain. It really puts into perspective the importance of seeing other people and the importance of meals and going out and things like that.
Yeah, so I feel like, COVID hit everyone pretty bad, but it gave me a time to kind of reflect and see how much, and it let me appreciate how much food that we do have in our culture and how much value that holds.
Yeah, that's true. So everyone, please, food is important. People are important. Let's listen to the law.
Yeah, on the topic of food, I told Sophia that she can grow spring onions in a little glass of water. I told her, you just chop off the green part and you leave a little bit of the white ends with the roots. And you can stabilize it like on top of a mason jar with little toothpicks. And as long as the roots are submerged, they'll like keep growing.
Oh my god, yes.
Like continuously.
I'm just trying to remember. In my just random Instagram called _Sophia_cookie with 2 E's at the end, I have an update on my spring onion because they're growing.
Yeah. But you should post that picture with this episode's release.
I will. But if you go on my Instagram, my personal one as well, there's a lot of food that I've cooked and not cooked because food is awesome. But I'm waiting for it to grow because actually, Sally, you don't know, but one of the green onions are actually quite tall that I can actually cut it.
Oh, damn. But yeah, if you who are listening also want to grow their spring onions, now's the chance to do it. And they don't need like a lot of sunlight.
No, because I'm a vampire.
She's a vampire.
I do not open my blinds unless it is legally required by my husband to get sunlight in the room.
Yeah, so with minimal sunlight, they're still able to grow. So I think it's going to be a good quarantine project.
Yes. They don't really see sunlight. They'll see sunlight maybe twice a week.
That's really depressing. They probably have more vitamin D than you do.
Yeah, they probably have more vitamin D than I do because I really will not open the blinds. But, Sally, on the next episode, I think we should talk about delivery food and convenience stores because it's so...
Their life.
Yeah, it's such a big part of Korean life. And
it is.
I feel like, especially Japan as well, their convenience store culture is just crazy. And I think Korea is
something
like there
that
as well.
You can really understand if you've experienced convenience stores in Western culture and in an Asian culture.
Yeah, so I feel like we should talk about that in the next episode while we're on the topic of food.
Yeah.
So did everyone enjoy our episode?
Yes, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And you can follow our Instagram, Mixing Cultures Podcast, for more updates. And we try to remember to post previews of each episode. That comes out Sundays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
But everyone, thanks so much for listening. We're going to come back to you with a new episode every week. We come 3 p.m. Eastern Standard. Did you? Sorry, she already said it.
Yes.
All right, people. Bye. Have a Merry Christmas. Even though by the time you hear this, it'll be after Christmas.
Oh, that's true. Merry late Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
I hope 2021 is treating you already well.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.